Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdic Steve, and today I'm joined with Darcy Ross and James Introcaso, and we're going to be talking about Bryte. Both of you just want to jump in there, Darcy, and then James, and you tell people where else they can find you and what they might know you from.
Hey, yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm Darcy Ross. You might know me as the community relations coordinator for Monte Cook Games. So, we make things like Numenera and Invisible Sun, lots of cool games. I'm also a big snailologist and a big biology nerd. Yes. And I helped design Bryte, this game we're going to be talking a little bit about. I'm super excited to be here.
And I'm James Introcaso. I have a podcast network called Don't Split the Podcast Network. I have a blog called World Builder Blog. I've worked on a bunch of different things with Wizards of the Coast, Kobold Press, Roll20, MCDM, and I am very excited to talk about Bryte today, which I also helped design. So I'm excited to be here.
I want to thank you both for coming on. I'm very excited. Two of my favorite people, two of the coolest people I know, too. So what is Bryte? Let's kind of just start there.
Yeah, sure. So Bryte is a science fantasy role-playing game that was built for Roll20, the virtual tabletop from the ground up. They're actually the publisher. It's exclusively available on Roll20. And it is an RPG that takes place in the Alaxis Galaxy, which is the last galaxy in existence because the universe has started shrinking. And this phenomenon called the burn is closing in on this galaxy. And as it touches planets and space stations and people, they are never seen or heard from again. But there's still 100 or so years left. So while people are starting to panic, life in some ways is still continuing as usual. And there are lack of resource problems, there are fighting over land problems, there are corporate greed problems, and the idea, the sort of assumption of the system is that the players, even though the world is ending, aren't going to be jerks. That they are there to, save people. I often say, if D&D is a game about finding treasure and fighting monsters, Bryte is a game about rescuing people and doing the right thing. And so that is the idea of in the face of hopelessness, choosing still to be a good person because that's core to who you are and it's core to what matters.
I feel like you somewhat described modern times, but
Things have gotten more and more real over the last bit.
So, Darcy, how big is the team that's been working on the project?
Yeah, so I think there was 4 designers sort of initially brought in a long while ago at this point, several years ago. So it was, Jim McClure, Kat Cool, myself, and James here. And so we hashed out a lot of the sort of early design and shape of the game. And then I got hired by MCG. And so I stepped away. I sort of didn't do as much of the sort of writing of the actual book. So I think as I look and play it now, because I've been on an AP, a lot more of the kind of early design decisions, I remember being a part of those conversations and a lot of sensibility that I love about games like the Cypher System or Invisible Sun. We sort of, so much of this game's DNA really comes out of things that each of the designers really loved. I love seeing the imprint of all the different design minds on this finalized game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. I feel that so much, right? In the game, that there are so many ideas that happened at the beginning that it was these are good ideas and we should keep them. And so you can go through and look, even if you just look at all the playable species, right? You can go through and say, this is a Darcy species, an idea, right. This is a cat idea, this is a Jim idea, right? And kind of go through that way. And then also within the mechanics of the gameplay and within the lore of the game, it really is something that for people, I feel like came up with that none of us would have come up with on our own or even working in a pair, right? It really is 4 people's brain kind of all melded together and
beautifully weird.
Yeah.
So when designing Bryte, is it designed specifically for a VTT? And if so, what were the thoughts and your thought patterns that went into to designing specifically for that style of gameplay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Burn Bright is optimized for Roll20. You could play it at a game table. We don't use any weird dice. We don't use any thing that you couldn't have at a table, but Roll20 makes it a lot easier and does a lot of automation for you. It is a game that uses maps quite often, right? Battle maps, but also maps just for like exploring an area that maybe you want to explore or that kind of thing. And so Roll20 makes that easier. You build a spaceship together, right? And you can customize it and swap out components and do all these different things that, again, if you are on Roll20, it makes it easier as opposed to drawing out that every single time. And the mechanics, technically you would need like 35 dice in front of you if you were going to play Burn Bright, which a lot of people have. And you probably wouldn't use all of them all that often, but when you are rolling 5 or 6 dice at once, that automation of Roll20 makes everything very easy. So I know in the beginning, I remember pitching ideas like, what if we had like a D13? Or I know I once pitched something that Darcy was like, that is too much math. And it's not, like this idea of, hey, think of all the things we can do with Roll20 was also competing with, but like people like to understand role-playing games. Like they want to understand the mechanics. If they want to play a game where they don't understand the mechanics, they'll play a video game. And so Darcy, you were like a big champion of that at the beginning. And I think that has really helped the game be accessible.
And I think like kind of making things, there's a lot of sensibility in the game to make things clear to players and GMs. So one thing I really like is the core mechanic of this game is really unusual. And so the probabilities of success or failure are something that people haven't seen before. And so I know people have been really appreciating that we like included the probability table of like, if and it's not a very complicated one, but it is really nice to know that how the things scale and people can make informed decisions about what they want to try and what they don't. And like the other thing I want to call out about what I think really works with Burn Bright being optimized for VTT is that there's this beautiful character builder built into Roll20. Like, man, I want that for a lot more RPGs. Like getting to see how that really came out polished is very inspiring to me. I don't know. I think like RPGs can feel kind of intimidating. There seems to be like a lot you need to go absorb before you can make an informed choice about your character. But the Character Mancer in Burn Bright came out beautifully and gives you lots of context about your choices and just makes it a really streamlined experience. I could imagine using that at cons, right? To quickly build characters that people are already really able to steep themselves in faster.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the benefit of that, not specifically for that game, but just even like using D&D Beyond and giving it to my son to go to build a character and who doesn't know everything and can just like still pop out a character in like 5 minutes or less. So having an interface that really facilitates that is huge. What is the core mechanic since you mentioned it, Darcy?
Yeah, I'm sure James can correct me if I'm more rusty than I remember, but it's really cool. Because the players that we are playing are fundamentally like heroes, raging against the dying of this galaxy. We're telling heroic stories, and so we're not. This is not a grim, dark campaign, right? And so the core mechanic kind of reflects that. The idea is that you succeed until you don't. So what I mean by that is the sort of easiest challenge that you might encounter, but that still has a chance of failure, would be having you roll two dice. And so if I have a D12 in my empathy skill and I'm trying to understand my enemy to sort of get them onto our side, right? We're having this conversation. Maybe they're already sort of teetering, so it's not hard, but like, will we make it in this moment? It might be a challenge sort of 2. So I roll 2 of my D12s and I succeed unless I get doubles. And so you have different die sizes for your different abilities, and you roll different numbers of dice based on how difficult the challenge is. And so you're looking for, you just sort of look across your dice values and find out, did I roll doubles? If I did, I failed, or something complicated will happen. If I don't, I succeed. So it's kind of unusual in that way. I don't think I've seen anything work like that before.
That is unusual. I have not heard of that. And instantly I started thinking about Monopoly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because if you get doubles 3 times in a row, you
so
go
funny.
right to jail. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. Thank you.
I don't know if it's a good analogy, but it's just where my brain went.
Just a connection. At least it's a reference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So doubles are bad. Too many doubles, you go to jail. So you said you use all the dice, and how exactly does that work?
So when you're in combat, in Burn Bryte, that complexity of things starts at 2. So you roll 2 dice for your first action, whatever it is, whatever skill you're using, and you see what happens. And you can keep pushing your luck and keep taking actions. And each time you do, the complexity of the next task increases by 1, right? And there are other things that can affect your dice rolls and your complexities in combat. Conditions is a big thing, right? Like you might have a condition. So you keep taking turns either until you decide, I'm good, I don't want to take any more actions, or until you fail. And when you fail in Burn Bryte, you don't just fail to do the thing you wanted to do, you make things worse. So that is one of the things that it makes it like this press your luck mechanic. And as you're rolling dice, you could be rolling up to 7 dice at once. And outside of combat, if you're beset with like a very hard task, and again, maybe you have conditions that are affecting you, maybe you're trying to do something that's very difficult, but the GM still wants you to be able to attempt it, you could be rolling up to 7 dice. And that's why that probability that Darcy mentioned earlier is important, because like in a game like D&D, right, as your difficulty goes up 1 number, it's incremental, right? In D&D, we're using the D20, so it's 5% each time more difficult as your number, for every 1 your number goes up. But in Burn Bryte, it's exponential because of the way the math on rolling dice and doubles and things like that works. So that's why we included that chart, because it might, like, increasing the complexity of a task by 1 is really going to change the odds of success and failure. And so we wanted the GM to be able to see that.
So do you use all the polyhedrals?
D4 through D12. We don't use a D20.
Okay. And what does this scale mean?
So the bigger the die, the better your chances of succeeding in a skill are, because they're less chance for doubles, right? And D4, there's a much greater chance you're going to get doubles than on a D12.
Yeah, I mean, like the die size, is that tied to like your aptitude with a particular skill, or?
Yes, exactly. Okay. So if you have a D12 in a skill, you are the best you can be with that skill.
Cool. Yeah, it definitely sounds interesting. Darcy, you have you're in a stream game of Burn Bryte, correct?
Yeah, I get to play a beautiful grizzled old bug man. Love it. Yeah, that's on Thursday nights over at Roll20's Twitch stream. It's run by Celeste Konowich, amazing GM. It's a great cast of people. And it's really fun to get to be a player in this world and see how someone else runs it, right? I'm excited to see maybe more streams, right? Because I bet people take really different tones in the games they play. But we've been having an absolute blast.
So what are the other players playing? We have a bug person.
Yeah, so I'm Ola Zazcot. I'm a Cthulhu, sort of Uncle Iroh from Avatar inspired character, right? So the Cthulhu are this species that, is, I'm sort of a mercenary type. We have, a Zavoy, I believe, is the kind of slug-like person who inhabits, bodies that aren't being used anymore because the owner's dead. And so it's really cool because they can kind of take on the different species bodies and kind of animate them in this sort of macabre but cute way. Yeah.
They're hermit crabs, but with people?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And they're very charming. I love them. And so that's very good. Then there's a driftling, which is one of the species that I came up with that I just adore. And driftlings are interesting because they're sort of a nice complement to the Zavoy, because they're constantly a very plastic organism. So their body form is constantly changing, and that can be based on a species they might spend a lot of time around. So if they're around like the cat people, the Eno, they might, so our driftling has sort of a cat person head, but has like sparkly crystals from the crystalline species, and is sort of this amalgamation of different species in a really neat way. And we've got character art of it, so it kind of brings it to life. And then finally we have, the Rornan, right? The beautiful hive of bug people. And they're really about, they're the species that's very like colonial organism, right? It's united with many individuals, but they're now spread across the galaxy. And so this character, their character arc is to kind of try to unite with as many other kinds of its species as possible, sort of finding these, long scattered species in this ever shrinking galaxy. Very cute. So we got bug people up the wazoo, different changing organisms. And notably, there are no humans in this universe, which is something a world building choice that I really appreciate.
The first step in creating a better place, get rid of all the humans.
Exactly. And I can't forget our ship Wanda. So one thing I like about this game is that ships are basically have magic intelligences in them. And so they are functionally like an NPC with the party, right? And they've got personality and you can talk to them. They're like a whole person that you get to interact with. So Wanda is our sort of, aged, smoking, sultry voiced, beautiful like 50s ship. I love her.
That's funny. I could see how you would love that. So you said magically intelligent.
It's a science fantasy game. Do you want to talk about that, James?
Sure, yeah. So pretty much everything in Bryte is like magic powered tech. And so only on the design team, only Darcy is a scientist. The rest of us were not. And so we sort of had this thought about like, and I think we all like science fantasy stories. You wouldn't find a person on the design team who isn't a big Star Wars nerd. We've got that going for us, and we like this idea of like, what stories can we tell with magic? And then we also don't have to worry about like, is the burn traveling at a rate fast enough that makes sense? When ships travel from one place to another, how does everybody breathe? All that kind of stuff. And so magical intelligences are, right, we had mentioned earlier, a lot of resources are disappearing. Essentially like a bunch of mages, when a ship is built, they then perform a ritual around it to imbue it with this magical intelligence. And the game is filled with mysteries that the GM can sort of answer with the players or leave open as a mystery as they want to. So like, for instance, one of the mysteries, we don't say what causes the burn. We throw out a lot of suggestions, and we say there's different people who think different things, but we don't say who is right, if anybody. Same thing here is they don't really know where the magical intelligences are coming from, and the magical intelligences don't remember anything before they were put into the ship. And so it does raise some like ethical questions, that the galaxy itself is struggling with, but is also at the same time like, well, then this being powers our ship and we don't need fuel and we don't need to worry about all of these other resources to keep our ship running. And they seem content as long as we are kind to them. They usually are pretty kind to us. There might be a crotchety ship every now and then. So that is kind of the idea behind the magical intelligence. Everything you have, it's the same reason that your laser guns don't run out of ammunition, right? And that kind of thing is like, we don't want it's a mechanical choice because I think the whole design team is of the opinion that like tracking ammunition in a game isn't fun. But it's also a choice of we want the universe to feel magical when you are in it.
Nice. I like the fact that someday there might be a ship revolt.
Yeah, that's looming.
Yeah, it's hinted at for sure in the rules that is a thing that might happen. So yeah, it is. When you raise questions like that, we wanted it to be part of the like, is this right? Is it not? It's definitely got questions about what is going on here, and so that's. We sort of leave it to the GM and the players as to if they want to tackle those questions, they can.
Makes me think of Farscape a little bit with the Leviathans.
Yeah, totally. I only discovered Farscape after this game, but yeah, that exactly.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, in the Wildcard series, George R. Martin was involved with that. There's an alien species that also uses living ships, and that's why they all were like duelists and would fight with swords, because if you're firing energy weapons on the ship's alive, and you're going to damage the ship. One, it's protecting you from space, and two, it's a living thing. So yeah.
Nice.
So it sounds like a lot of fun. So is it class-based, skill-based?
It's skill-based. So you have 18 skills that when you create your character, you pick or create a custom culture, right, for your character. Maybe you're from your species' homeworld, or maybe you are from like a place that has a lot of different species intermingling, or maybe you're from some other planet that has some other story, and so you can build your own culture, right? And then your culture determines what your starting skills are and what your starting abilities are and how much money you start with when you build your character.
So is your money, does that determine how many like magic guns you can buy?
It does, but it's also money after character creation. So you buy money. You don't buy money. You buy equipment for your character, right, individually, and then whatever's left over goes into a community pot, and then money becomes a community resource that is tracked on your ship's character sheet, which everybody shares and has access to through Roll20. So you buy stuff together, and you can invest some of your money, so you can kind of like seal it away, and your money literally grows in a tank. It's like this aquatic organism that grows in a tank. So that's a big part of it. But then another really kind of big important thing is character advancement. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Darcy? Because I think that is a brainchild of you and Kat, the story paths.
Very dear to my heart. So rather than advancing through, advancement is tied to going through steps of narrative for your character. And so when you start building a character, you pick a gosh, do we call it story path, right? Okay. I'm trying to get my terminology right. So you pick a story path that you're sort of signaling to the GM and the rest of the players, like, I'm interested in exploring a narrative with this character about discovering uncovering a mystery, solving a mystery, or developing a romance, or creating something. I want my character to like make something amazing. And so there's lots of example story paths in the book, and each one has 5 steps. And so there's one that's kind of an initiatory, how do you start on this path? So my character last night just uncovered some mysterious files sealed away in Wanda's databanks, and now I'm very curious about this. So I completed the first step of it's called the question. I've found my question that I now want to go search an answer of. And so that unlocked, that gave me the ability to go pick a Nova ability from my species list. So I basically got to, I get a cool new ability for completing that step. Later steps will happen as I find more clues on this story path, and those might unlock raising a skill die in any skill I want, or some are, more, unique things you get, right? Like someone wanted to have a beast friend, wanted to have an animal companion that they have a story about sort of taming and building a relationship with, and so they have a cool new NPC friend that they got. So yeah, it's a really interesting system. I like that, whether some story arcs are set up about like having a rival, right? And you might the ending of those stories are really open, right? And so you get cool abilities whether or not you kind of complete the story in a positive way, like you and your rival, like you beat your rival or whatever, or if you complete your story in like kind of a negative way, like your rival bested you. There are cool and interesting options that come out of kind of whatever ending these story paths take you with, and you level up the same as if you had were constantly winning. Failure is very interesting in this game.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, so many times we learn much more from our failures than we do our successes anyway.
Yes.
I do want to say I would like to see the stock market replaced with the aquatic money tank. It sounds more reasonable to me. Less far-fetched.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And sort of the idea behind that was that, again, magic, right, is important. And the flow of magic through the universe is dependent on these organisms that people are sort of trading as money. And so that's why we're using it as money, because, hey, it's spread out across the universe now and it's all in these different places. And so if we can keep the economy going, magic keeps working, basically. And so that's the idea behind the trade of money.
So if you accumulate your money, it will literally multiply with itself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the rich get richer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's funny. I love that so much. So, so the lore of the world, or before we get into that, like, what did each of you do, on the team? Like, what were your jobs, or did you guys have jobs? Did everybody do everything, or?
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of did a lot of everything. So, we were all, especially in the beginning, we were all spitting out lore and looking at mechanics, and we did a lot of alpha play testing together and feedback and stuff like that. So there was a lot of that. I think we each sort of had a little bit of expertise in different areas, right? So I came in with a lot of Roll20 expertise because I had worked with them before. So that was sort of my biggest contribution, was being able to say, like, I think we can do this. I don't know about that, or we definitely can't do that. And then usually pitching crazy ideas and people, or wild ideas, I should say, and people saying, I don't know about that. Sounds too video gamey, or that kind of thing. So it was a lot of fun to be able to work with this team.
Sounds a little chaotic. Was there a lead?
Yeah. So Jim and I were lead designers on this. But definitely in the beginning, there are so many ideas that just came from the whole group in here.
Was there like a core ethos or parameters when you guys first started, and that you kind of were able to work out from there, like a framework?
We mapped a lot about tone, I remember, in the beginning, right? Like, I think we had some really important kind of foundational meetings at the beginning where I think we went on a walk together. I think I have a memory of us, like, maybe you weren't there yet, but maybe this was Kat. Maybe it was the four of us.
Yeah,
I think it was like a walk.
the Chicago crew. Yes.
Yeah.
That you, Jim, and Kat all went on a walk. Yeah.
Yeah, and just had a lot of conversations about like what the feel of the game should be and who is it for. And I think there's a lot of like kind of grounding principles, right? We wanted a game that people new to Roll20, people new to RPGs would have a lot of like assistance getting a smooth experience out of it, right? I think like getting we love RPGs. We want more people to be playing them. And so we want this to be a game that is for a wide audience. I know that we were at the time, a lot more of the news, I think that this game resonates in a lot of different ways, but I think one of the pieces of news that was percolating when we were first designing this was about kind of the refugee crisis, right? And we're climate change, right? And war are, causing movement and displacement of peoples, right? And we were feeling that very strongly. And so I think, a game, I think part of it was about, dwindling resources felt like a thing that we were experiencing in our own world, trying to find hope within it. Was something that was important to us, and how to find harmony among really different people who are struggling in their own ways and coming together. And so I think that we met. I feel like it's a lot easier to work collaboratively once you've come together on a lot of core issues, like what is our tone, who is it for, what is our what's open about this, and what's decided. So when I joined, Jim McClure was like the core mechanic. Like Jim McClure was like, I have this. I wanted to try it forever. We're doing this weird, doubles failure system. Something about that is going to be related to the core mechanic. But when I came in, I was like, I really like not having to roll a lot of dice as a GM. And I think it's a lot easier to grasp your chance of failure if we're not having opposing rolls. And so those early meetings about what the core mechanics of the system were, what the core tonality and what we were doing here really helped us then branch out and sort of riff off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's my memory of it anyway.
Yeah. And I agree. Right. And I think even that's where it's sort of the idea of, this is a story about the end of things, but we don't want it to be the typical story about the end of things where it's like, whoa, isn't everyone a monster? We wanted it to be a story of like, you are not an a-hole and you can choose not to be an a-hole, right? And leaving things open then, because I think some people would play this game and would never address the like what caused the burn, right? It's happening and that's what's important. And some people want to play the game where they turn it back. And I think both of those are valid ways to play Burn Bryte. One is probably going to be a lot more heavy at the end than the other. But I think they still have sort of those core assumptions within there that we were talking about. And also the mechanics of the game are still going to be the same. And I do, I think we landed in a great place. One reason that we didn't have humans was because of those conversations of this idea of like, it's very easy for species to be pigeonholed when there are humans, right?
Right.
And so we have these cultures that different species have come from, and there are cultural beliefs and things, but you build your own. So your, Zavoy could be just as different from another Zavoy as you and Darcy are, Dave. So like that's one of the ideas is like everyone has these different experiences, and so we wanted to get that in there. And so we thought, if we remove humans, then everything has humanity. Kind of was the idea behind it.
So there's a good question in the chat from Brian, and John jumped in there and answered it, but I'm going to ask it to you guys just so in case someone's watching later or whatever. Are status effects or long-term things like the adrenaline effect tracked figured out by Roll20, or is the GM tasked with that?
Yes. So conditions are all tracked on your sheet, which is great because they modify the complexity of rolls, right? A positive condition, hey, that's a good thing. Your complexity is going to be lower. A negative condition, that's a bad thing. Your complexity for checks will be higher. And there's this whole system of like clicking hearts on your sheet, hearts with plus signs for positive, hearts with minus signs in them for negative. They can affect like a single skill, a whole category of skills, or all your skills, right? Depending on what the condition is. When you click those, automatically then the math will be done for you when you go to make a skill roll in Roll20. And conditions don't have names because there are so many different things that could affect you, and also because we wanted to sort of avoid some of the ableist language you often see in conditions, right? And so conditions in Burn Bryte are often more like frustration, or being affected by like an intoxicant or that kind of thing, right? And so we wanted to be able to give people the option of like, this should be affecting you in some way, but we only have these 8 conditions, so we can only pick these.
Right.
Now it's like, this should be affecting you. Here it is. We're gonna call it, that you are love drunk right now because you are so in love with this person, and it is making you feel awesome, and therefore everything is easier right now. So that is one of the things. And then I guess the question was also about not just conditions, right? One other thing.
No, it was just about who tracks it. Essentially, it was basically about conditions and how that does. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all on the sheet.
So that's definitely a way where playing on the VTT Roll20 is way easier than if you're playing at the table, because then you have to track things, or whatever. Now, I know this might be a silly question, but will there be support for offline play for people that want this game, but maybe they don't play online? They don't use VTTs at their home.
So the official response, which the fact that I can't tell you that something is coming should tell you something, is that at least for a while, this is how the game will be available, is through Roll20. And we'll see where things kind of go from there. But there are plans in the works to continue to make the game as accessible as possible for people. And so that's all I can say, I think, about it now. And
I also feel like, 6 months ago, that would have been a much bigger obstacle than it is now.
Right.
Because like people are playing online and have never played online, and breaking their own inertia. So once they see that they can do it, I'm sure many of them will continue to do it. So that's good. That is going to be an upside for Burn Break for sure.
Yeah. And again, I'd much rather there not be a pandemic than what's happening right now. But I do think since March, people have really embraced virtual tabletops like Roll20, and so that it is not as much of a barrier to entry as it has been for people. But I would say keep your eyes peeled for different things that will not just make the game more accessible, but will also perhaps make the game easier for game designers who are interested in working with the system.
I'm like envisioning this Shadow Cabal now of VTTs and Zoom.
Sure, and Nintendo making Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
right.
They're while people are worrying about Bill Gates secretly, it's been this Shadow Cabal all along.
Right. Yeah.
So this is all pretty exciting, and you guys are kind of moving into new territory. I mean, this is right the first RPG that was specifically designed for VTT, right?
I think so. I know other people have attempted, have made a go of some things, but I think this is the first one that has really had like a big launch like this. So and I would definitely encourage, I would love to see other systems on all of the various VTTs out there, because I think it is a way that many of us play, pandemic or no, because it's a great way for me to keep in touch with gaming groups I had in college and high school and people I meet at conventions and stuff like that. And so it is very fun to be able to play games that are sort of optimized and built right in and make sitting down and playing at a virtual table hopefully easier for people, because I do think there's a lot of there's a learning curve to every virtual tabletop. And so games that are saying like, hey, you'll have fun when you learn all these things and will help you learn all these things, I think are good.
I'm really fascinated to know what the design space will look like in 5 years, right? I'm remembering View Scream is a really cool kind of the earliest like game designed around a virtual experience that I remember, it's by, I think, Raphael. His last name is escaping me, but it's called View Scream, and it's meant to be played like it's a horror game about being like on a spaceship, and so you're communicating with your fellow folks on the space station or spaceship, and like it's you're sort of the isolation and the weirdness of being on video with each other is sort of built into the game and tapped into for sort of a horror experience. And so I think I'm really excited for all the cool technology that Bryte has brought out into what we can do design-wise here. And I hope that in 5 years, right, like there's stuff that we never would have thought of when we were designing this in like 2016 at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I hope people check Bryte out and then go make better stuff, right? Weirder stuff. Take this and run it. I want to play even weirder virtual experiences in the future.
Yeah. That I totally forgot about View Scream. Right. That's I think Chandler is Raphael's last name.
I think you're right.
And then Alice is Missing just came out, which is a game you play all via text. Which
it made me cry so much.
Yeah.
Recommended.
It is a very, very good game. So there are already people doing really cool things with the tools that we have available, and I think that's we're just scratching the surface now, and it's going to get deeper and more interesting and more fun. So yeah, I am with you. I want to see. It's fun to be here at the beginning, and it's going to be fun to see where people continue to push this space.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had been working on this project for so long. I guess, though, like, we've been kind of hanging out and meeting for a while now, off and on, and you have mentioned it since then, so I guess it has been a while.
A young man named Barry Obama was president when this all started. So yeah, it's been a while.
But I also know some people do use VTTs in their home games where they just put it up on a screen. They like the tools. They use it for that.
Totally. And you'll honestly, again, if all you have is the compendium open, which you could have on a tablet, you could have on your phone, you could play Bryte at a table with a bunch of dice, with a like a map that you could draw things on, and paper. Right? It's gonna be. I think it'll be a little slower than if you play on Roll20, but you'll have a great time and you'll have a blast. And that's one reason I'm excited to maybe get something into other game designers' hands, because people can also play this system at the table. Cat Cool, the Autonomic podcast uses the same sort of core rules as Bryte, but is played at the table. They're an actual play where everybody sits at the same table and records together. So that's it's definitely doable and fun, and there are ways you can modify this so that it can be optimized for physical table play.
Well, I definitely need to get into a game at a certain point. Fortunately, I think I know a guy.
Sure do.
Indeed. Yes.
I think we're playing a game tomorrow, actually.
We are playing a different science fiction experience tomorry. Dave and I are playing the Expanse RPG together, Darcy.
Oh, fun! Oh my gosh! Oh, have good space. That's another lots of resonant themes there. The Expanse is also running out of resources and people displaced. Cool.
Yes, exactly.
Who's running? James.
Ooh, good.
We roped him in. We got the best DM we could find, and I think we made out pretty well.
They didn't look very hard, so.
Nah, we got you in that game. We got Runehammer in that game. I think. After your run of the Expanse, maybe we can get him to run some RPG or Index RPG for us.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
That'd be cool. So. Darcy, when you were talking, it reminded me that the first tabletop RPG book that I seen online play mentioned, and I believe was Cipher System. I don't know that it is the first book. It's just the first one that I saw, and you know what? It was just like a throwaway line in there, but it had a lot of impact on me when I read that, just because it's just like a sign of the times that things are changing. for someone who started back in first edition D&D to now, and it's just so cool to see the hobby grow and change and evolve.
Yeah, that's a great point. We MCG came out with your best game ever. It's a book. I'm only plugging this because it's very relevant. It's a book that we came out with because there are so many new people joining the hobby, and it is growing and changing. And lots of people are really hungry for, like, I see streamers. How do I become a great player? How do I become a great GM? How do I get into this hobby? Right? Like, I wanted to play D&D forever, but I couldn't find someone to teach me, and I only had the player's handbook. And so I was like, but how do you run this game? And I sort of reverse engineered it and ran it. But
that's exactly how you learned to play D&D.
I know,
back then.
So many people did this. But we have a whole chapter in your best game ever about guidance for online play, and it's in the free preview. So if anyone's home and is learning to run their games online right now, I recommend checking that out. I think there's we're all learning together on kind of how to make this experience feel the most like that great feeling of having fellow players at the table. I feel like this is a chance for us all to try to make online gaming the best it can be for us in this hard moment.
I'm so ashamed. I back so many Monty Cook Kickstarters, but apparently I never claimed my rewards.
No.
So I did it, and I had 2 big boxes show up of stuff.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, I think I see a black cube right over your shoulder there, Dave.
You do see a black cube.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We actually did the retail level on that and gave 2 cubes away.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Back way when. It feels like forever ago now.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
There is a question from Brian in the chat. How does Bryte handle spaceship chases, battles? I saw a mention of specific mechanics for that.
Tune in next week because we're about to probably get into a spaceship battle. But James, do you want to give any highlights?
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that is sometimes common in science fiction and science fantasy RPGs is the pilot character who doesn't do anything for 2 sessions, and then for half a session is the only person doing something, and then goes back to doing nothing, right? And it's kind of this imbalance of it's not fun when they're the only one doing anything, and then it's not fun for them when they're not doing anything else. And so in Bryte, we wanted to, again, we're taking advantage of the fact that Roll20 was built for 4th edition D&D and has this great map capability. And so you build a spaceship together, right? And you build the map together. You say, we're going to put this in here, and we're going to, we'll put a laser cannon here, and we'll put a lounge over here, and a med bay, and a cryo chamber, right? All of these different things that you can put in. And you want to, your ship should probably be, in many cases, balanced between we've got all these awesome weapons, and also it's a nice place to live because your spaceship is your home, right? You don't just want to be crammed into a warship all the time, and that will affect some of your abilities if you do just have all weapons and no fun, right? And so
unless weapons are your fun.
That's true. And there are things, Darcy, I think your character has an ability where they are very friendly. And the fact that they are friendly means that the ship is a nicer place to live because you're in such close quarters all the time. And so that boosts up every member of the party in this case, right? But so once you build your spaceship, when you're in combat, the way it works is you can run around your ship. You move your token around the ship and interact with different pieces of the ship and do different things. So during ship combat, it's similar to regular combat or a regular chase, we move, your ship kind of stays in the same place in the map, and the GM is moving all the enemy ships around you, right? So if you move your ship, we're just moving the tokens around you to represent that movement, right? You're blasting by them, so they were in front of you, now they're behind you, that kind of thing. And then the characters can run around and jump in and out of laser turrets. They will put out fires. They will be sealing hull breaches. They'll be running to the engines to boost more power. They'll be, working with shield generators to make shield. And there's also a like a magical space. So your magical intelligence exists in the MI space, which is kind of like virtual reality, right? And you can jack in there and you can be protecting your MI and attacking enemy ships' MI in this MI space. So there's a lot of things to do, and it sort of adds this nice layer of complexity. You might repel borders, all that kind of thing. And all of that happens on your ship map. And you run around and use your movement and your skills to interact with pieces of the ship to make it go faster, to make it do, barrel rolls and things like that.
Can you?
I think yeah. And like, last session we were all like picking which of the quarters are our rooms and like describing the lounge and like how we've decorated the ship, right? And so I think like the psychology of, oh my God, the combat is happening and we're still like in our very like cozy home space, like gives it this, even more tension because you're seeing the home that you're protecting in a really like defined way. Oh, I'm very excited for our first battle.
Yeah. What's cool is there are all these little modules that come with the game that you can drag and drop onto your ship, but you could also bring in other map items that you want. So if you want to, give your lounge like a fun plant, you can like drag a fern in there and now you've got a potted fern in your lounge, right? Or if you want to put a teddy bear in your room, you can do that kind of thing. And you can upload your own images to Roll20. So quite literally anything you have art or a photograph of, you can put into your ship.
Nice. Can you capture other magical intelligences?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things about ship combat that's hard is there's kind of that like, wow, our ship blows up, right? If it drops to 0 hit points, our ship blows up and now we have a TPK. And so that doesn't happen that often in Bryte because you're not trying to blow up somebody's ship. You're trying to board it, and like magical intelligences are rare, ships are rare, and you want to take that for yourself. If you're an evildoer, probably. And so that's why you're not blowing up player characters all the time. A ship might go dormant or that kind of thing. But yeah, you can definitely go in. Now, the magical intelligence may not take kindly to that. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it is a thing you can try.
Nice. I do like the concept of virtual reality or virtual space, but as magic instead. It's kind of like the astral, right? I guess.
Yeah.
So does the team like know how these things work, or has it been you left open ended intentionally? Because I know sometimes I will design something, and I just choose not to explain or figure out how it happened because I don't feel like I really need to know that right now.
So the answer is for some things, for many things, we don't necessarily get into how or why they work the way they do, and we'll often say that like no one is really sure why this works this way, but it does. And so that's a big part of it. And then mechanically, I would say, again, this is like the unique makeup of the team that came is the game is sort of, I would say, sits somewhere in between something very crunchy and something very sort of storytelling oriented. It feels, in that regard, it feels similar to the games you work on at Monty Cook Games, Darcy, right?
Mm-hmm,
there's like
definitely
enough there where you can do a lot of different things and you feel safe because you have the rules to sort of adjudicate them, but not so, it doesn't get so granular that you need to interpret a rule oddly to make it make sense or anything like that.
So I ask each of you this, to start you, Darcy, what is your favorite element of the game? Whether you made it or someone else made it.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to cheat because I think story paths are probably my favorite element. And that definitely in part owes some inspiration to what I had heard about Invisible Sun before it was out, before I joined MCG. Like only the announcement had been made. And I was like, it was really percolating. So Invisible Sun has character arcs. But my maybe second or related favorite thing is Nova Points, which we haven't talked about very much. And this is that when you are presented with a challenge, something's, you're trying to convince this, you've captured a mind intelligence and you want to get it to convince you to fly around the galaxy, right? You have some refugees you've helped out and you want to get this ship to help you out and work with your team. You could use a skill like empathy. You could use computers. You could try to hack it, right? The skill you choose in this system is totally open-ended. You just kind of have to justify it with your GM. And part of the fun is that you get a Nova Point, like a really cool special resource that powers a lot of your special abilities as a team if you use one of each die type. So once you've used a D4, D6, D8, etc., once you've used one of each type, which is very easy to track on the character sheet, you get a Nova Point. And so that really encourages you to like use skills that you have really low values in, and it feels really, it makes the game feel very dynamic, and you have failure that is still that is narratively satisfying while still tactically good for your group. So one thing that is tough is sometimes that games like failure can be really interesting, but it's a bummer if you're like kind of screwing over your fellow players. But when you fail, if you're failing because you're using a low die type, you're still contributing toward the success of the group. And you get to narrate a cool absolute disaster in negotiation with this mind intelligence. So I love the failure Nova Point system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a huge thing, and I really like about that system what you were saying earlier, Darcy, the justification, right? When I feel like when players realize that it's built into the system, that they get to kind of BS, right? That they're like, wait, this system wants me to do this, right? That to me, I think, really captures one of the fun aspects of Burn Bright, right? Which is, like I said earlier, science fantasy. We all like Star Wars on the design team, and then there was a big list of things that people like Gundam Wing and Guardians of the Galaxy, right? All of these things that are kind of high and over the top in their solutions to things.
Right.
And so it really does allow players to think outside the box. And I've played Burn Bright with a lot of people who are, primarily D&D players, and it opens their mind in a way that it's like, yeah, you are gonna love a whole bunch of role-playing games when you discover them, because of the way sort of that opens up for like, hey, player, you tell me what you want to use. I don't tell you to make an athletics check. You tell me if you want to make an athletics check to jump over this pit, or like maybe you want to hit your sonic caber on the ground and try to ride the sound waves over.
Right.
Let's do it. Right. There's a skill for that too. So, so it's very fun to watch players figure that out. And also to watch GMs. I think it's really helped some people expand their GMing skills, because the rules encourage the GM to say yes. Because, wow, if you fail doing that, too, that's failure is going to be spectacular. So even if you're an adversarial GM, which, not everybody is, most people are not, I think. But if you are, there's even encouragement for you to work with this system and everything like that. So
they are a bit of a dying breed, and that's okay.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely okay.
There were different. I found there were different varieties too of adversarial GMs. There were the ones that were just straight up jerks, and then there were ones that like they had a set of rules that they followed. They were still adversarial, but they were very, I don't know, fair is the word. Yeah, I guess is the word to use.
Sure.
It was definitely a different time. So I'm looking at the chat and mechs.
Heck yeah. So for people who like mechs, I have to call out the Peacecraft, which is a playable species that are basically big ol' mechs who can be, can like bring on another individual to kind of like work with them and help them, fight or do cool stuff. But presumably they were created to support some species that used to drive them or power like it was whoever their progenitor, species was, is like gone or missing or unknown. I believe is the backstory behind Peacecraft, but they're big, all mechs, and they're really cool.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. That's
how
a
big?
cat cool creation.
Very.
So they get so when you the player version of Peacecraft, you use like a large token, like a 4 square, takes up 4 square, because your allies, like Darcy said, can literally get inside of you and you can carry them around.
So you could play one of those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are some Peacecraft get to be like even bigger than that. Much,
like Robotech?
Oh yeah. I would say think Transformers, like they run the gamut of Transformer sizes.
Oh, so from little boom boxes to like cities?
Yeah. I don't know if they quite go to city, but like some are like 80 feet tall.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No Omega Supreme. No, that's cool. So you can play a mech party. If you have a bunch of giant mechs as your NPCs that are kind of there with the players.
Oh, that would be super fun. I'd be into that.
Yeah. That does sound like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What? How many different species did you create for the game?
So there's 8 that you could play. There actually is another species that was sidelined that may come out again, and then there are other species like within Olaxis that you see in our NPCs section, who if everybody goes out and buys Bryte, they might become playable species too. So so please go buy Bryte.
Charles is asking a super important question. I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Could a Peacecraft transform into the spaceship?
That is a great question. So they can transform into pieces of the spaceship. That's one of their abilities, is like they can turn into a turret and other things. And they can take an ability that lets them combine with other Peacecraft. So they can sort of, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers it up and create like a bigger Peacecraft together.
My interest in the game has just exponentially grown. I had pitched my group with using Mutants and Masterminds to play a Transformers game, and it fell on many deaf ears. But
listen, I would be down for that. So,
well, in I think like 7 days, War for Cybertron drops on Netflix. It's I think it's a trilogy, so I'm intrigued. It looks good.
I do have to throw out there that Justice Arman, who is a great game designer, is working on a 1-page RPG that I think it seems like it's a lasers and feelings hack, and it's called Morph Bots or something.
Nice.
And your 2 stats are disguise and robot. So
oh my gosh, yes.
Very thinly veiled.
So follow him for more information on that. That's very cool.
So Brian wants to know, what's your favorite sci-fi trope? The cheesier, the better. You want to take it first, James?
Oh, wow. I think my favorite sci-fi trope is when someone does something that shouldn't work and it should work, right? Like, or they do something very unexpected and it results in like great success. I'm thinking about like when this often happens in Star Wars, often with like a character like Han Solo, right? Who grabs Chewbacca's bowcaster and he doesn't realize it's going to be as effective as it is when he's using it against his enemies or that kind of thing. So that is one of my favorite tropes, is the thing that shouldn't work suddenly working way better than it has any right to.
I got to get me one of these.
Yes, exactly.
I am a big sucker for like ancient civilizations, like going, having a ancient advanced civilization. So I'm thinking about like, Star Wars, Sith, BS, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm into those old, overgrown temples. I'm into weird magic abandoned places. And I think my other one is more like the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of thing, which I don't see as much as I would like to see. But it's, Guardians of the Galaxy opens with like that Redbone song, right? Come and get your love. So I love like musical sequences that were like a character's like listening to a song and like is kicking womp rats or whatever out of the way. I live for that stuff. I love comedy in my sci-fi when I can get it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean that opening scene is great too. So
It's perfect. It's everything I want. And then he like puts on the goggles and he can see the ancient civilization that used to be there.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Well, I don't even know if I have a trope, but I do like. You know what? I definitely do like the comedy in there. There's a series that's written very tongue in cheek called Hard Luck Hank, and like his catchphrase is suck face sucker, something along those lines. It's so
Yes.
like cheesy. The all the titles are like terrible. And most of the characters are terrible as well, but it's just fun.
Yes.
Oh man, have either of you read Gideon the Ninth? It's more fantasy, but it's got some sci-fi, weird, kind of almost like a Warhammer 40K vibes to it. It's really cool, and it is written like the dialogue is so it's kind of about necromancers in space. It's great, but the dialogue is very like full of swears, really funny, suck like that kind of dialogue is all throughout here, which feels very great in contrast to sort of this baroque like necromancers gathering that they're at. It's perfect.
Yes. That's
so
awesome.
we are just past the hour mark, so that went fast. Final words for thoughts before we head on out.
If you're interested in Bryte, it's at burnbryte.com. That's Bryte. We didn't get into why it's spelled that way, but if you go to burnbryte.com, you'll learn it. And there's a video there, and there's a bunch of different ways to get started. There's you can buy the rules. There's a starter set that comes with pre-gens and stuff like that, or you can get a bundle that comes with both of those things plus a lot of bonus art. So it's all over there at burnbryte.com.
And when you check it out, please let us know what you're thinking. There's an unofficial like fan Discord. Is that correct? I don't have the link, but I'm sure if you Google around, you will find it. And so people are sharing what cool characters they're making, and there's a great little community kind of being sprouted up around here. So come join us there. Come tweet at us about what you think of it. I'm Darcy L. Ross at most places, and I would love to hear of your Bryte stories.
Yes. And I'm James Introcaso on Twitter, and it's linked to the Discord is linked in my Twitter bio. If you're looking for it. So and there's a lot of great resources and stuff being shared there. And also on Thursday nights, don't forget to watch Darcy playing Bryte with a great cast of people and an amazing GM. So that's over at twitch.tv/roll20 app, and it's at 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific. Yes.
Yeah, so go check it out for sure. I want to thank you both for coming on. I always enjoy my interactions and talking with both of you. And as always, folks, in the description, there are links to find these fine people, as well as Bryte. And after this thing goes up and isn't live anymore, it'll be the pinned comment as well. So until next time, stay nerdy.
Thank you, folks.
Bye.